of the fundamental of investigation and intelligence. So we have two chapters in the Unit A, Nature and Concept of Criminal Investigation. So the chapter 1 is Introduction and the chapter 2 is the Methods of Identification of Criminals. Under chapter 1, we have the history and personalities of criminal investigation. We have also the etymology of investigation, definition of terms, the criminal investigator, rules of criminal investigator, the qualities of criminal investigator, desirable traits of criminal investigator, the goals of criminal investigator, the tools of investigation, the phases of criminal investigation, and the golden rule of criminal investigation. Under chapter 2, we have rules to be observed in taking confession or admission, methods of identification by witnesses, kinds of criminals identified by witnesses, sources of circumstantial evidence, and the identification by the method of operation or what we call the modus operandi. So, a good investigator needs to be conscious of his or her own thinking, and that thinking needs to be an intentional process. So, criminal investigation in its modern form is rather invasive development. So, in the past, crimes are solved not by scientific methods of inquiry, but rather through crude and discriminative means such as witchcraft, torture, and other similar methods. So these methods were used by our ancient ancestors. So say for example, the ordeals, boiling water ordeals, para malaman yung kanilang innocence or the guilt of a suspect. So early 19th century, criminologists saw the need to develop a scientific means of identifying criminals because the criminological theories are useless. So early 19th century, criminologists saw the need to develop a scientific means of identifying criminals because the criminological theories are useless unless you send the right person to jail or prisons. For instance, the classical theory of deterrence and positive theory of rehabilitation cannot be applied to an innocent person since no amount of punishment or treatment can deter or treat an innocent persons. So, Dr. Hans Bloss, Edmund Locke, and August Ulmer undertook to establish the earliest crime laboratory in the world to advance the art and science of investigation. So, interestingly, a series of books published by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle features a fictional character named Sherlock Holmes. So, I know everyone is familiar with Sherlock Holmes. So, as a detective who used crude scientific methods in investigating crimes long before the world has seen its first crime laboratories. So, contemporary authorities and criminal that can be used to identify criminals based on the tools they use, the manner of commission, and the time of crime, and other pertinent data. So, let us now come to the history and personalities in criminal investigation. So, they are the early contributors in criminal investigation. First, we have Eugene Franhot. So, he is a former convict who became the head of Sorority, which was recognized at that time as France's premier detective agency. So, he is credited for his effective use of criminals to catch criminals. So, Vidocq's unorthodox approach later became a model for John Wood's book, who famously stated that it takes a thief to catch a thief. We have also the two brothers, Henry and John Fielding. So Henry Fielding was traveling magistrate of England who established the first uniform police force in Bow Street. So a road notorious for thievery, so also known as the runners or the thief takers. So they conduct a call and respond to reported incidents. So when Henry died, he was replaced by his brother John Fielding, so as a head of the Bow Street Runners. So this is eventually became the model for the London Metropolitan Police, the Scotland Yard, by Sir Robert Bobby Hill. So we have also Dr. Hans Gross. He is considered as the father of criminalistics. So he published a book entitled Modern Criminal Investigation, which paved the way for Edmund Lockhart to incorporate modern science to police work. So this is eventually the start of using modern technologies when it comes to criminal investigation. We have also Edmund Lockhart, a French criminologist, who established the first world crime laboratory. So in Lyon, France, they expounded Dr. Gross' theory by stating that when no objects come into contact with one another, they leave traces at the crime scene. So siguro dito natin pwede masabi na there is no perfect crime. Meron talagang may iwang ebidensya. So this became known as Lockhart's exchange principle upon modern forensic science. We have also Sir Llewellyn William Atcherley, the Chief Constable of West Riding, Yorkshire. He pioneered recording of the MO, the modus operandi. So this is the methods of operation of the suspects. So files as an investigative aids that can be used to identify criminals based on the tools they use, the manner of the commission, the time of the crime, and other pertinent data. So example of modus operandi is budol-budol gang, martilyo gang. So they have methods of operation in committing crimes. We have also Thomas Burns. He discovered that modus operandi do not remain the same. So again, it changes the career profession if the criminal changes. So he instituted the Boundary Morning Street Parade, a practice where captured criminals are paraded in front of the police force in order to facilitate easy identification in case they commit crimes in the future. So this is the origin of the police lineup. So police lineup will be discussed later on. We have also Alphonse Bertillon, the father of personal identification, who framed anthropometry, the individualization of a person based on their body measurements. So this is supplemented the practice of descriptive works accompanying a sketch in order to identify criminals, or known as the portrait art. So a French word for word picture or talking pictures. So with the advent of photography, drawings became out of fashion. So nevertheless, the practice of accumulating rogues gallery became embedded in policing around the world. We have also Alan Pinkerton. So he was a pioneer in non-government policing and private detective works in the US. So the company he established bore his name, Pinkerton. So just like this one, there is a logo of an eye with the inscription, "We never sleep," which the American public came to know as the private eye. So among the famous cases they sold involved Alexander Stade Longboat of the Butch Cassidy outlaw. So he also credited for the hiring for the first female detective in the investigative work, which is Miss Kate Wade. We have also Jonathan Wild, conceived business of recovering stolen properties for a fee in England in the 17th century. So tinatawag silang theft takers. Arguably, the world's first private detective. So he took advantage of a system of bounty and rewards set up by the British parliamentary ward system. So we have also John Edgar Hoover. So, a director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, his efforts centralize information of fugitives, criminal activity, organized crimes, fingerprints, etc., lead to the further development of criminal investigation. And we have, lastly, the August Bulwer. So, he served as an army sergeant in the Philippines. So, during the Spanish-American War and became an army policeman who oversaw the integration of former Guardia Civil into the new insular constabulary. His experience in the Philippines convinced him of the need to professionalize policing and shield it from politics. So he reluctantly accepted the position of Marshal of Berkeley in California with a post-peace commission in order to respond to a plane derailing incident. And it was then that his innovative approach to policing became recognized. So following the lead of European development in criminal investigation, he established the first crime laboratory in the United States in order to support his efforts to professionalize policing. So, etymology of investigation. So, the term came from the Latin word investigar, which means to track or to look into for traces. Or, fundamentally, it may have been derived from the word vestigium, another word which means footprint. Or criminal investigation came from the Latin term investigat, which means to inquire or to discover during the 15th century. We have also, investigation is not unique to law enforcement. So, other professions, as a matter of fact, other professions routinely conduct investigation and other fields of specialization. So, thus a doctor must first diagnose the disease before he can recommend a cure. He must investigate. Likewise, an engineer cannot calculate the concrete unless he measures the floor of the structure. So he is building, so he must also investigate. So criminal investigation, when applied to law enforcement, it is safe to state that crimes cannot be solved on its own unless the police conducts criminal investigation. Criminal investigation is the systematic, step-by-step process determining whether a crime has been committed and if so, who committed it. So let us now come to the definition of terms. We have investigation. It refers to the process of carrying out a detailed examination or inquiry, usually in official manner, to discover something or somebody. Criminal investigation is a logical process of collection and analysis of facts about a person, things, and places relative to the crime. We have also the criminal investigation is an undertaking that seeks, collects, and gathers evidences of a crime for a case or specific purposes. So, criminal investigation as an art, a science, and the process. An art based on intuition and sometimes by chance. A science because it involves the application of knowledge of forensic science. And a process because it involves systematic procedures. So what is criminal investigation? So criminal investigation is an art which deals with the identity and location of the offender and provide evidence of his guilt in a criminal proceeding. So how about criminal investigator? So what is criminal investigator? Criminal investigator is the person who is in charge with the duty or of carrying the objective of investigation, such as identity of the criminal, locate the offender, identify the criminal, locate the offender, and provide evidence for his guilt. So, the criminal investigator also is the superstar in the process of investigation. So, he must be capable of observation and a rational thinker. So, many times, a police investigator is being tested with his discretion. So, discretion is the power or right to decide or act or according to one's own judgment, freedom of judgment or choice. So, what are the rules of investigator? So, number one here is to determine whether a crime has been committed. Number two, identify the victims and the offender. Number three, locate and apprehend the accused. Number four, present evidence of guilt of the suspect. And number five, assist in case of follow-up.